VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. This is the late night Friday edition, probably Saturday by the time you folks watch this. But I am here with optimistic Vikings fans, the great OVF Ian, fantasy football extraordinary. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Wonderful. I got about 5 Vikings questions I want to ask you. But first, I never really got your take on the 2022 season. There was a wonderful time frame between the Washington and the Buffalo win where we all kind of got hoodwinked and thinking they were Super Bowl contenders. Didn't pan out, but overall, and considering your name, optimistic Vikings fan, what was your take on the 2022 season?
I mean, it's everything you can ask for, honestly. Like when you look at the season, obviously let's discount the playoffs for a second. It's
Mhm.
everything you could ask for. It was the most fun season I think I've had in my lifetime.
Mhm.
Highs, lows, like on the edge of your seat every single game. Like I think that's all you can really ask for is I was entertained. And that's what football is entertainment. So that was some of the most entertaining football I've ever watched. So
Yeah,
I think, you know, yeah, the ending was a little disappointing, but to me, that doesn't discount the fun we had that whole season.
I agree. I think right before the playoffs, I sat down, was contemplating writing something about like the 10 or 15 best moments of the Vikings season. And I was like, oh God, when I started to put a pid to paper, I was like, this is gonna have to be like a top 40 because there were
Yep.
just so many moments. All right. Well, predictably, when a lot of us knew that the aging, expensive veterans like Adam Thielen, Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, Dalvin Thomas wasn't too old, but he left too. When a lot of those guys started to go off the board to other teams, it was kind of predictable in hindsight that this would be labeled a rebuild by the Vikings because the big popular names are hitting the back door. I want to know, because Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has preached for 14 months now, a competitive rebuild. Do the moves that he's enacted in this offseason fit into your interpretation of a competitive rebuild?
I think so. I think there's still moves to come, so
Mhm.
we'll truly see shortly. Um, but you have, players that are entering their second contract, still young, that are, Byron Murphy is the key offseason move. I think, when you look at him, he was arguably probably the top target at cornerback in the league.
Mhm.
And then you look at what you got him for as well with the money, and it just seems like the right move at the right time. And I think when you think about competitive rebuild, you also try to look into the money situation of, are you hindering yourself in the future? And even though there are these infamous now void years on like all these contracts that, let's be honest, do any of us really even understand fully? I don't know if I do. But these void years, there's some dead cap, but I don't think it's going to ever put us in this like situation where we have the amount of dead cap that we have this season. So I think, yes and no is going to be my answer, which you probably don't like.
No, that's all right.
But I think the moves that are still to come, I think some of your questions that you may be posing shortly,
Mhm.
I may be preemptively getting into, but moves like, you know, there's probably inevitable moves of Dalvin Cook, of Za'Darius, whatever happens with them, whether we trade them, whether we restructure their contracts, whether we extend them, you know, those kind of moves are going to also dictate how this roster is seen.
Last September, Las Vegas decided that the Vikings were around an 8.5, 9.5 win team. And the rest of us, plus the Vikings coaching staff and players, said, the hell with you. We're going to go win the division. Do you expect all of us, plus the Vikings, to enter 2023 with Super Bowl or bust stakes?
I think that as Vikings fans, we can't have those expectations anymore because we've had it our entire lives, and it's gotten to the point where let's just have a fun season. That's where I'm at least. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just have a fun season. I don't want to watch a season. I know there are a lot of Vikings fans that are sitting there wanting us to tank. I'm never going to root for that in my life. I will never root for a tank season. First of all, it rarely works. But second of all, it's not going to be fun. And so I think, at this point with what we did with Kirk's contract too, I think the goal should be winning a playoff game. Let's get there. And then when that happens, then let's see who we're playing, how we're playing, what our injuries are. Because there's so many other factors. I don't think anyone, honestly, except for if you're like the 2021 Rams, can you say it's Super Bowl or bust?
Yeah,
unless you're getting rid of like 3 future firsts, you're going all in on these then it's Super Bowl or bust. Then I can get that, but we're not doing that. At least not yet.
In my perception, the offseason started when Ed Donatel was fired and Brian Flores was hired. And that was about 6 weeks ago now on the Flores part. And then they've added Marcus Davenport, Byron Murphy, who you mentioned, subtracted those big names. Give me a top 3 offseason moves in terms of importance or impact.
Well, I actually think the number one is we all knew something had to happen with Kirk Cousins, whether it was, pushing void years, whether it was lowering his cap number, extending him, trading him, releasing him, which was never going to happen. But it's to the dismay of many fans, you see. But I think that's the number one move as far as importance on the season, that he's sticking around. But at the same time, we're going to be in the same spot potentially we were this offseason, next offseason. So I think that's the number one as far as importance of where this season is going to go. Then I would put Byron Murphy at number 2.
Okay.
I think that Byron Murphy is going to be a big impact, even if he's not, I think he will be a big impact on the field. But I also think the youth combined with experience will also help the likes of Andrew Booth, the Caleb Evans, and Lewis Seen. I do think all those 3 are gonna, be sponges with Byron Murphy and Harrison Smith. So, I don't think I'm gonna put the Harrison Smith coming back on the top 3. Because I do think the third, as far as where we stand right now, I think the third most important would probably be Adam Thielen leaving, just because it has put this massive question mark on our wide receiver group. I can't see us going into the season with the wide receiver group that as it stands right now. Whether it's in the draft, whether we go and trade for someone, whether, it seems like all the free agent wide receivers are gone now, but there might be some left. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that, as where the wide receiver group stands right now, that's leaving a hole, Adam Thielen leaving. So I think we have to do something there. And I'm hoping for something in the draft right now, because I do think that this wide receiver class is better than we're giving it credit for. But at the same time, I could see it's been rumored out there that we're talking to the Broncos. So is there a Cortland Sutton move? Is there a Jerry Jeudy move? Their Broncos are apparently shopping both. And we do have history with the Broncos front office as well. So who knows?
If there's one thing that the Vikings organization is known for, it's for drafting wide receivers. So if indeed we're in this spot and they have not signed Odell Beckham, or they haven't traded for Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton or T. Higgins or somebody, and they're not sold on KJ Osborne, then yeah, you're staring at the first pick, whether that's 23 or at 30, depending on if Kwesi trades back. You pretty much have to, because otherwise it would be really weird just to say, all right, well, we're going to just, unless Hawkinson is really going to be this Kelsey-like target magnet. You mentioned Cousins being the most impactful move because it has its implications on this year, kind of in it to win it again, and then flexible enough to say this could be the last year. All of a sudden this week, I don't know how closely you follow mock drafts, but NFL.com, The Athletic, and a couple other ones decided that either Will Levis was going to fall, the Vikings were going to trade up for Will Levis, or the new big thing, the Hendon Hooker, we're going to reach for him in round 1. So I want to know the twofold question. This is probably the most exciting thing we'll talk about for the next 5 weeks. Will the Vikings draft a quarterback in this draft? And if so, more importantly, who the hell will it be?
Yeah, I think that is going to be a massive talking point for every Vikings podcast, for every Vikings Twitter handle, for everyone. That's going to be the number one topic. The way that both Cousins' contract is structured, as well as, and now I'm having a massive brain fart, the backup that we re-signed, Nick Mullins. Sorry, I was having a brain fart there. But the way that his contract came to be as well, it does look like a rookie contract fitting in with those two contracts makes a lot of sense. Now, is that going to be a first round? Is that going to be a fifth round? I don't know. Is it a coincidence that the basketball game that KOC and Kwesi were at happened to be in Louisville on the same day as Will Levis's pro day? I don't know. Like there's going to be all that, especially like today there was that they're in the city. Were they there? I know Darren Wolfson said we had someone there, but he won't say if it was Kevin O'Connell or Kwesi or one of the big names. Hendon Hooker, you mentioned, he worries me. And I think he's a first round talent. Let's put that out there. He is a first round talent, but he's old and coming off of an injury, multiple injuries. So do you use a first round draft pick on a 26-year-old coming off an ACL tear quarterback? I don't know if you can justify that. But like I said, he is that first round talent. So we clearly have trust in our training staff with signing Marcus Davenport. Like we wouldn't have made that signing if we didn't trust our training staff and our medical staff. So maybe Hendon Hooker is in that conversation. I would be more willing to accept that if it was in a trade down scenario, not at 23. Just because I don't think anyone's going to like trade up for him, or like when he's 26 and coming off those injuries. He's more of a honestly a late second rounder for me. But again, the pure just talent of that player is a first round talent. I think you can put him right in the same conversation with Will Levis as far as talent. Will Levis has a hell of an arm. He can throw that ball really friggin' far, man. And then he's got a very quick release as well. So you will hear the Josh Allen comps. You will hear, that he is going to be the same kind of prospect as Josh Allen was coming out, which is this boomer bust. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think he can be that middle of the road, Daniel Jones kind of quarterback as well. Not that I'm comparing him and Daniel Jones, just more like trajectory is what I meant by that. So he's an interesting prospect as well. I think if you're trading up, you're probably looking more at Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. But I don't think with the draft capital that we have in this draft as it stands right now, and that could change with the likes of Zadarius Smith and Dalvin Cook, but as it stands right now with the draft capital, I don't think a trade up could be justified. We would have to go into those future picks. And that doesn't seem to be what Kwesi wants to do. So it doesn't really make sense to me to trade up this year.
The funny part, cool part is on the little theory about Kwesi and Kevin being at the basketball game, presumably right around the pro day of Will Levis's. If that really is their guy, I bet you like all of the stars aligned. Like they look down at their NCAA brackets. Both of their alma maters are playing in an adjacent place. So let's go watch our teams play. By the way, we're going to scout the guy we love in person. We're already going to be there. I bet you they looked at each other and were like, holy shit, this is really cool. All right, I got two more questions for you.
No, but no one would have thought Princeton would be there
Yeah.
anyways. So
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the vibes are there. Okay, so we have about 2 weeks of free agency about to be in the rear view, pretty much in the review right now. Predict, if you will, kind sir, the next big offseason move. And I'm not talking about like, oh, Chris Boyd comes back or something like that. I'm talking about like a Jefferson extension or a Dalvin Cook trade. What's the next thing, the domino that hits our radar?
well, just looking at the numbers, it has to be a trade extension or something in that realm. It can't be another signing, really. Not an impactful one, at least, just because we are at almost bare minimum cap space right now. Um, so if I had to truly predict, I think it is going to be something involving Dalvin Cook or Zadarius Smith. I do think that's what's going to be on the forefront here. Which one comes first? If neither happen, I don't know. But I do think one of those two probably gets moved. And again, purely just a guess, because since you're making me do this, Dustin, but I would guess, just by looking at the other offseason moves that we've made, that a Dalvin Cook trade, if someone's actually willing to give us a halfway decent pick for Dalvin Cook right now, makes too much sense. You re-sign Madison, you re-sign CJ Ham, you have Ty Chandler and Kenny Nonglu on the roster. This running back draft class is one of the best I've ever seen in my life. So to me, Dalvin Cook at his cap number, as good as he is, I'm not discounting. Dalvin Cook is honestly still, I think, one of the better top 5, top 7 running backs in the NFL right now. But you don't pay running backs that much. Like, that's what we've learned. And I'll even throw something crazy out there to some Vikings fans. I think if Bijan Robinson is there at 23, it just makes too much sense, because you are getting a running back for, I'll say, it's 6 years at very cheap, because you get the 4-year contract, then you get the 5th year option, which is going to be cheap for a running back, and then you get that extra year of, now why am I blanking on the word again? When you put the stamp on them.
Oh, the franchise tag.
Yes, thank you, franchise tag. And the franchise tag for a running back is going to be really cheap too. So as much as we say don't take a running back in the first round, I think taking a running back, especially one that talented, in the first round actually makes more sense than people are making it out to be, because you do get him very cheap for 6 years, and you don't really want a running back after 6 years in this day and age. So then you can let him walk, and you don't have to give him this massive contract after. But it actually makes like logical sense. So now, will they do that? Probably not, honestly. And I could honestly see Robinson going top 10 even this year. He's that kind of talent. But who knows? This NFL, you never know with running backs with the NFL draft, because a lot of teams have seen themselves and other teams burned one too many times with the Zeke Elliott's of the world. Like, even him, really good, he kind of got a little burned, so who knows?
I think with Robinson, that if let's say the Vikings strike at 23 and he's their guy, people will bitch for that night, and they'll probably bitch for that weekend. But about a week after, we're all going to look at ourselves and go, dude, we got Bijan Robinson, and it's going to feel really cool. And all the running back crowd will be mad for however long, but tough shit. Some of us were mad about Adrian Peterson for a couple of weeks. And then, once we realized that Chester Taylor wasn't the same thing, the rest is history. All right. The final question, my good man. If before you even peek at a draft class that's formalized, if you had to formulate NFC North predictions in win-loss order, mind you, right now, the pecking order is the Lions, Vikings, Bears, and then Packers. How would you stack them up?
I'm still, Lions are gonna Lions. That's what I'm gonna say. And that's what I put out there. I think, people are gonna say with winning the offseason does not mean winning the season. And we've seen it so many times that these teams make all these crazy signings because they have all this cap space, but nothing really comes of it. And Lions, they're just not set up. Like, I'm not going to believe that they're a thing until they're a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, at least. So now, granted, I do think they are the second best team, and I'm sorry, you asked the optimistic Vikings fan this, so I do have the Vikings at 1 until proven otherwise. Going into last season, for as much as it pained me, I understood Packer fans that were saying we're the best until proven otherwise. And I'm going to say the same thing with the Vikings this year. We're the best until proven otherwise. And then the Lions, and then Bears and Packers can duke it out for worst. We'll see. We'll see if I'm the type of person that also doesn't believe Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded until it actually happens.
Yeah.
So we'll see on that front too. Like, he's going to draw this out. It might even be week 2 of the regular season by the time he actually gets traded. Like, who knows? He's got to make it a show. So I won't believe he's going to get traded until he gets traded. And therefore, I do think the Packers are still in the conversation between them and the Lions, just because Aaron Rodgers is still really good. I hate saying that, but he is. But we'll see. But Jordan Love and Justin Fields, I'm not a Justin Fields believer. I think that he's arguably the most athletic quarterback in the NFL. But is that as valuable when he's not in the top half of quarterbacks in the NFL? I don't think so. We talk about I'm not a QB wins guy, but the argument can be made, if you're gonna be the QB wins guy, how can you say that Justin Fields is good right now?
Yeah.
And then when you also look at, I think he had one game last year where he threw for over like 250 yards. Like, he doesn't have, he has great throws in him, but he can't string them together. So I do think that he's got a lot of work to do. I still thank God we didn't get Ryan Poles. Like, everyone's gonna, loves him for that trade down that he just pulled off. But honestly, I think with this draft class, pretty much anyone could have pulled off that trade. So again, I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, I do got Vikings at the top, and then Lions, and then we'll see after that. But
yeah, kind of
I do think the Lions have it in them to push the Vikings for that championship. But Lions don't really win in Minnesota either, so we'll see. I think that's going to be those two head-to-heads are going to be big games. And again, Jared Goff, who knows what kind of Jared Goff you're going to get on Sunday. People say that about Cousins too, but at the same time, Cousins will have 2-3 horrible games this season, and good. If you can have 13, 14 really good ones too, I'll take the 2-3 horrible games. Go for it. Like, no team is going undefeated. We're not going to see it again in our lifetime. So have your shit games, just have the really good ones too.
Yeah. I keep saying about the Lions that they got the weight of expectations now, and that's a brand new ball game, especially since Vegas has circled them. All right, Super Skull fan on Twitter, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. What I want to do is the week after the draft, you pick one of those daytimes or night times, and we'll decompress it together. You hit my line. You got any closing arguments for the group?
I'm pointing toward. I think the stars are aligning for a wide receiver at 23, and that's where I'll end that. Whether it's Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, I would argue, I think that Jordan Addison is the one that makes the least amount of sense of those three. But if JSN is there, you better jump on that. I don't think he will be though. That would be a Justin Jefferson like partying in the draft room again, like they did with Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
I don't think it'll happen.
Okay.
And again, don't see a trade up. So yeah, so that's why I'm studying draft class, the wide receiver draft class quite closely. And I think those are the three names that I would keep an eye on. Zay Flowers makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And so that's probably a name I have circled right now.
All right, you heard it here. Wide receiver, assuming there is no Odell stuff, no funky trade for T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy. All right, sir. We'll talk to you in about 5 weeks. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, take it easy.
Skull.
Go, baby.